Now, out in the English Channel is a huge series of sandbanks called Goodwin Sands. It's been a hazard to shipping for centuries, but some people want it to be protected. Yvette explains why.
(1940) and the Battle of Britain is raging in the skies above the English Channel. Flying officer John Kerr Wilson is at the controls of a Spitfire. He's hit by enemy fire and his plane joins others from both sides in the war that have ditched into the notorious Goodwin Sands. Today is an emotional one for John Kerr Wilson's nephew. He's heading out to the sands for the first time to pay his respects to the uncle everyone called Jack.
On a clear sunny day at low tide, the Goodwins can be seen shimmering in the distance, some 5 miles out from where I am here in Deal. Created by the tides, they extend for some 10 miles long and 4 miles wide, and when the sea rises, they disappear, becoming a hidden hazard for ships and their crew.
Below the surface, in the murky waters, the wreck of a ship, the Roosevik. Built by the Dutch East India Company, she floundered and went down in stormy seas during January 1740. All 300 lives on board were lost. Since the first documented wreck of 1298, it's thought there have been as many as 2,000 shipwrecks roughly plotted here on the Goodwins.
Which is why there's so much resistance to a plan by Dover Harbour Board to dredge nearly 4 million tonnes of sand from the Goodwins, all part of its rejuvenation of the town's western docks. Campaigners say it would disturb the final resting place of countless air and seamen, and may even damage historic wrecks that lay undiscovered.
The sand would be used to fill in areas of the current western docks to create more space to handle cargo. As the Harbour Board's own animations show, there'll also be a transformed waterfront with a new marina, which it hopes will attract a host of shops, bars, cafes and restaurants. And they say 99.7% of the Goodwins will remain untouched. On the journey to the sands, Richard Kerr Wilson remembers his uncle.
At Cambridge, he went to Pembroke College and studied engineering. He was the eldest son, and he was destined to take over the family engineering firm in Liverpool.
But being able to fly a plane, he was commissioned into the Air Force when war broke out and was killed in action, aged 32.
They flew in formation, which was what they didn't know the rules of the game really at that stage, because of course the Luftwaffe did not fly in formation, and they attacked them and destroyed them. He is certainly recorded as coming down onto the Goodwins.
There are differing opinions though as to how much is preserved in such a hostile environment.
So I've come to the Ramsgate Maritime Museum, an Aladdin's cave of artefacts from seafaring history, and there's a special room dedicated to the Goodwin Sands.
The Elizabethans called the Goodwin Sands a ship swallower. What happens is basically the sand gets washed away from the bow and the stern with the tides, and then she either breaks her back or it creates a trench where the ship will sink into the trench and keep sinking.
Is there an estimate to how many people over the centuries have died there?
Impossible to say. There must be at least 2,000 shipwrecks.
And salvaging from the Goodwins is a huge undertaking, as was proven back in 2013, when a German World War II Dornier bomber, believed to be the last intact example of its type in the world, was lifted from its resting place in the sand. It took 3 years to plan the operation.
Wow, it's huge.
At the former RAF station in Hawkinge, historian David Brocklehurst has been piecing together the jigsaw of the Battle of Britain. There are pieces here from 700 aircraft, along with other wartime relics and soldiers' stories. David has also compiled a list of airmen and aircraft lost on the Goodwins in 1940 alone.
There is 60 aircraft and over 70 airmen on the list.
And they're all potentially
Yes.
could be on the Goodwins.
Absolutely.
And he has strong feelings about Dover Harbour Board's plan.
It's just disrespectful. It's, you know, if it was one of their relations, they probably would feel the same way as we do. But unfortunately, these days, it seems to be that money counts. Because it is a moving bank, wrecks are being covered and uncovered all the time. Most of the surveying they keep quoting they're going to do will only touch the surface and won't touch really where the aircraft and vessels will be. And the only time they'll be disturbed is potentially if they actually dredge that area.
I feel quite emotional because he was one of 4 brothers and I knew all my other uncles reasonably well. So this is the closest I've ever got to him. And he was probably guarding the evacuation from Dunkirk, which was going on at that time. So it's quite evocative coming out here. The thought of them dredging when there are so many is appalling.
So you've got South Goodwins, North Goodwins, that's the Marine Conservation Zone, and that red, long, thin strip is the proposed dredging zone.
Back near Deal, Joanna Thompson's dining room has become the headquarters of the battle against the dredging plan. A petition has gathered more than 13,000 signatures and her piles of campaign material are constantly growing. She's not opposed to the Harbour Board's development, just where it wants to get the sand from.
There's no concern about how the local community might feel about the Goodwins, which are very close links with the coast here. Not once have they actually voiced any concern or sensitivity about it, and I think probably underlying that might be one of the causes why people are just thinking, well, why should they?
Dover Harbour Board says the Goodwins have been dredged before on numerous occasions for national infrastructure projects, and they say this time it'll help ensure the ongoing resilience of the cross-channel supply route. The campaigners believe, though, it involves breaking historic promises.
I found clippings in the East Kent Mercury on their microfiche archive, which says that in 1976 it was agreed that they would have a licence for one project only, and it would not precipitate the further taking of sand.
Something else that's concerning the campaigners is how the dredging might affect wildlife that lives in and around the sands. The proposed dredge site falls within a recommended marine conservation zone. There are 50 such zones around England's coast already designated. This one is pending government approval.
Well, the proposal is to remove millions of tonnes of sand and all the life in it. So all of those wonderful creatures that live within the sand and support the fish, which support the birds and the seals, would be removed. And we just don't feel that that's appropriate in an area which is meant to be protected.
Dover Harbour Board has declined an interview, but in a statement says the dredge is vital to deliver the sympathetic regeneration of Dover awaited for more than 70 years. It's up to the government's marine management organisation to decide whether or not to grant the licence to dredge. Richard and others in the campaign believe it's down to one thing: whether economic gain will be considered more important than letting those who gave their lives rest in peace.
It's a great honour to be able to actually show some mark of thanks and gratitude for what they did.